Princess Dawn stood at the viewing deck of the galactic shipyard, her delicate fingers tapping impatiently against the crystal railing. Before her stretched the finest collection of spacecraft ever assembled in the known universe. The morning light from 3 suns reflected off their polished surfaces, creating a dazzling display of engineering excellence. Yet her expression remained unimpressed. "Your Highness," the chief shipwright of the stellar empire bowed deeply, his silver robes shimmering. "This is the crystal star, pride of the luminous fleet. Its neural networks can predict your desires before you even think them." The princess walked around the gleaming vessel, its pearl-white surface so smooth it seemed to be made of liquid light. Without a word, she shook her head and moved on. The emperor, watching from his floating throne, let out a heavy sigh. This was the 47th ship they had shown her today, and the 312th this month. His daughter needed a suitable vessel for her grand tour of the outer systems, but nothing seemed to meet her standards. Perhaps the Golden Lotus. Another shipwright suggested hopefully. It can transform its internal layout based on your mood and the entertainment system. "No," Princess Dawn said firmly. "It's just like all the others. Too perfect, too clean, too soulless." She turned to face the gathering of the galaxy's finest shipbuilders. "Don't you have anything with actual character?" The shipwrights exchanged nervous glances. One of them cleared his throat. "Your Highness, these vessels represent the pinnacle of achievement from 12 advanced civilizations. They're designed to be flawless." "That's exactly the problem," Dawn replied, walking past rows of ships that could bend space and time. "They're all trying so hard to be perfect that they've forgotten how to be interesting." The Emperor's patience was wearing thin. "Dawn, my dear, you must choose a ship soon. The tour cannot be delayed much longer. The outer systems are growing restless, and they expect to see their future empress." Dawn stopped in front of a ship that could literally read minds and project holographic landscapes matching its passengers' dreams. She studied it for a moment, then turned away with a look of boredom. "Father, how can I represent our empire in a ship that has no story? These vessels were built by machines to please algorithms. They have never faced a real challenge or needed a real repair." An advisor stepped forward, his holographic robes shifting colors with each movement. "Princess, perhaps you would prefer something more traditional. The royal fleet has many vessels with centuries of noble heritage. Ancient ships piloted by computers programmed to act old-fashioned." Dawn laughed softly. "That's even worse." The Emperor's throne hummed as it carried him closer to his daughter. "The outer systems expect to see the might and sophistication of our empire reflected in your choice of ship. We cannot have you touring in anything less than the absolute peak of technological achievement." Dawn touched the surface of a nearby vessel, one that could supposedly travel through dimensions. It felt cold and lifeless under her fingers. "What's the point of visiting our people in a ship that makes them feel inferior? Shouldn't we show them something that inspires them? Something that proves even simple ships can be extraordinary?" The gathered officials murmured uncomfortably. The chief shipwright stepped forward again. "Your Highness, we have shown you the finest ships from the most advanced worlds in the Empire. If none of these please you, what exactly are you looking for?" Princess Dawn looked out at the vast collection of perfect, gleaming ships, each one more advanced and more soulless than the last. "I'll know it when I see it," she said quietly. "I want a ship with stories in its walls and life in its corridors. A ship that's been places and seen things. A ship that's more than just a machine." The Emperor raised his hands in exasperation. "And where, exactly, do you expect to find such a ship?" Dawn smiled mysteriously. "Perhaps we're looking in the wrong places, Father. Perhaps we need to visit some worlds that don't pride themselves on perfection." Earth was not a place that usually hosted alien royalty. At the small spaceport in the middle of nowhere, Montana, Captain Jack wiped grease from his hands and watched the sky turn strange colors as the royal ships descended. They looked like giant soap bubbles catching sunlight. Too pretty and too perfect to be real. "They're really coming here." Tom, his young mechanic, asked while tightening bolts on the Star Wanderer's outer hull. The alien princess and everything. Diplomatic visit, Jack replied, squinting at the approaching ships. Something about checking Earth's readiness for more advanced trade routes. He patted his ship's worn metal surface. Though I don't know what they'll think of our old girl here. The Star Wanderer wasn't much to look at. Her hull had patches on patches, showing repairs from 20 years of faithful service. Her landing gear creaked, her paint was faded, and her cargo bay door needed an extra push to close properly. But she worked, and she had never let her crew down. The royal ships landed with impossible grace, not even disturbing the dust on the ground. When the doors opened, out came the most unusual group the spaceport had ever seen. Guards in shining armor, officials in flowing robes, and in the middle of them all, Princess Dawn. The princess ignored the welcoming committee of Earth officials. Instead, her eyes moved across the scattered ships in the spaceport, studying each one carefully. When she saw the Star Wanderer, she stopped walking. "That one," she said, pointing. "I want to see that ship." The Emperor, who had come along to supervise his daughter's diplomatic duties, looked horrified. "Dawn, that's clearly some sort of primitive cargo vessel. We're here to evaluate their space program, not their junk heaps." But Dawn was already walking toward the Star Wanderer, her elegant dress trailing in the dust. Jack straightened up, suddenly very aware of his oil-stained coveralls. "Your Highness," he managed, giving an awkward bow. "Careful of the grease spots. We're in the middle of routine maintenance." "You maintain it yourself?" Dawn asked, eyes bright with interest. She reached out and touched the hull, feeling the different textures of the repair patches. "Yes, Mom. Me and my crew do all the work ourselves." "She's not pretty, but—" "She's perfect," Dawn interrupted. She turned to her father, who had floated over on his throne. "This is it. This is the ship I want for my tour." The silence that followed was broken only by Tom dropping his wrench in shock. "Absolutely not," the Emperor said firmly. "This vessel is real," Dawn finished for him. "Look at these repairs. Each one tells a story. And these manual controls." She had wandered up the loading ramp and was peeking inside the cockpit. "You actually fly it yourself?" Jack nodded. "Yes, Your Highness. Got old-fashioned controls and everything. Even a physical steering wheel for atmospheric flight." The Emperor's advisors were having fits. One of them stepped forward, his holographic robes glitching with distress. "Princess, this ship doesn't even have a neural interface, or automated defense systems, or artificial gravity in the cargo hold," Jack added helpfully. "We use magnetic boots." Dawn's smile grew wider. "Even better. Father, I've found my tour ship. Either I go in this wonderful vessel, or I don't go at all." The Emperor looked at his daughter's determined face, then at the patched-up Star Wanderer, then at Captain Jack in his stained coveralls. He closed his eyes and rubbed his temples. "Captain," he said finally, "how would you like a temporary commission in the Royal Fleet?" Jack looked at his ship, then at the princess, who saw beauty in its imperfections and smiled. "Well," he said, "that depends on whether we get to keep doing maintenance our way." "I wouldn't have it any other way," Dawn replied, already rolling up her sleeves. Captain Jack never thought he'd see royal guards in magnetic boots clomping around his cargo hold, but here they were. Their shining armor looked strange against the worn metal walls of the Star Wanderer, like diamonds scattered in a toolbox. "This is unacceptable," the head guard said, his perfect posture unchanged despite the magnetic boots. "There are exposed pipes everywhere. And these corridors. They're so narrow. Those pipes carry coolant to the engines," Tom explained, pointing with his wrench. "And we keep them exposed so we can fix leaks quick. Would you rather have pretty walls or a working engine?" The princess, who had changed from her royal dress into a borrowed pair of overalls, watched the exchange with amusement. She had spent the last 3 hours learning about the ship's manual systems, much to her guard's horror. "Your Highness," one of the younger guards whispered, You don't need to learn these primitive controls. We can install an AI system." "No," Dawn said firmly, her hands on the physical steering wheel. "Captain Jack is teaching me how to land the ship myself. What if the AI breaks? Then what?" Jack smiled as he adjusted the controls. "That's the thing about simple systems, Your Highness. When they break, you can see what's wrong and fix it. Can't do that with a computer that thinks for itself." The royal technicians who had come aboard were having the hardest time. They kept trying to upgrade things, only to have Jack's crew explain why the primitive systems were better. "But this air recycler," one technician said, waving his scanner at the humming machine. It's just filters and fans." "Yep," said Linda, Jack's engineer. "And when it gets clogged, we clean it. When it breaks, we fix it. How long does it take to repair one of your fancy molecular scrubbers?" The technician went quiet, remembering the 3-week shutdown when the royal palace's air system had malfunctioned. As the day went on, something interesting started to happen. The guards began asking questions. Real questions, not just complaints. They wanted to know why certain pipes went certain places. They were curious about the manual emergency systems. A few even asked to try the physical controls. "See this lever?" Jack showed a particularly interested guard. "Pull it halfway, you get normal thrust. Pull it all the way back." "Emergency stop," the guard finished, nodding. No computer lag, no safety check delays, just instant response. Princess Dawn watched all this from the cockpit, where she was learning about the ship's radar system. "Father wanted me to show our people the Empire's glory," she said quietly. "But maybe what they need to see is that glory isn't always about being the most advanced." The head guard, who had been listening, looked thoughtful. "I must admit, Your Highness, while this vessel lacks our usual refinements, there is a certain logic to its design." Just then, Tom accidentally dropped a wrench in the cargo hold. Thanks to the lack of artificial gravity, it floated gently up instead of falling down. 3 guards caught it, laughing as they pushed it back to him. "Besides," Dawn added with a smile, "when was the last time anyone had fun on a royal transport?" As the day ended, Jack noticed something had changed. The guards were standing differently, more relaxed. The technicians were taking notes instead of making complaints, and when dinner was served in the ship's small galley, no one seemed to mind sitting on mismatched chairs around a table that had definitely seen better days. "You know," the head guard said, accepting a cup of coffee from Linda, "there's something to be said for a ship you can understand, something you can touch and fix with your own hands." Princess Dawn looked around at the mixed group of humans and aliens, all talking and sharing stories about their different ways of doing things. "That's exactly why I chose the Star Wanderer," she said. "It's not just a ship. It's a bridge between our worlds." The Star Wanderer was 3 days into its journey when the ship's old-fashioned radar started beeping loudly. Tom was the first to notice, looking up from his card game with 2 of the royal guards. "Captain," he called out, "we've got something big coming our way." Jack rushed to the cockpit, with Princess Dawn right behind him. The radar screen showed a massive storm system approaching, angry red and purple clouds of charged particles that could fry any ship's electronics. "Ion storm," Jack said grimly. "Biggest I've ever seen." He grabbed the ship's radio. "Warning to escort fleet. Massive ion storm approaching. Suggest immediate course change." The royal ships surrounding the Star Wanderer were beautiful to look at, their hulls gleaming with advanced technology. But when their captains tried to change course, nothing happened. Their AI navigation systems were already going haywire from the storm's outer edges. "Our controls aren't responding," came a panicked voice over the radio. "The neural interfaces are shutting down." Dawn watched as the escort ships began to drift, their sophisticated systems overwhelmed by the storm's interference. "Can we help them?" she asked Jack. "Not enough time," Jack said, his hands moving across the manual controls. "Linda, get to engineering. We need full power to the magnetic shields. Linda was already running to the engine room, with 3 royal technicians following her. They had learned enough about the ship's simple systems to help now. "Your Highness," the head guard said, "we should abandon ship. Use the emergency teleporters." "Those won't work in an ion storm," Dawn interrupted. She had learned more about space travel in 3 days on the Star Wanderer than in years of royal education. "We need to trust Captain Jack." The storm hit them like a giant wave. While the escort ships went dark, their advanced systems completely fried. The Star Wanderer kept going. Her old-fashioned controls and simple electrical systems were barely affected. "Manual controls," Jack shouted over the rumble of thunder. "No computers to fry. Tom, watch those coolant pipes. Linda, how's our power?" "Holding steady." Linda's voice came through a speaking tube. "No fancy communication systems needed. The magnetic shields are taking it, but we need more power." Dawn looked at the exposed pipes running along the walls, the ones the guards had complained about earlier. "The coolant flow is dropping in Section 3, she said, reading the simple gauge. "We need to redirect it." The head guard, now understanding why simple systems were sometimes better, rushed to help. He and Dawn worked together, manually adjusting valves to keep the engines cool while the storm raged around them. Every few minutes, they could see one of the escort ships through the windows, their beautiful hulls now dark and powerless. Jack steered the Star Wanderer close to each one, careful to avoid the worst of the storm. "We can't leave them," he said, though rescuing them would be dangerous. "Tom, prepare the magnetic grapples." One by one, they attached grappling lines to the disabled ships. The Star Wanderer's engines groaned with the effort of pulling 6 ships behind her, but she held together. Her patched hull and exposed pipes might not have looked pretty, but they were strong. "Like a mother duck leading her ducklings," Dawn said with a smile, helping Jack maintain their course through the storm. Hours later, when they finally emerged from the ion storm, the Star Wanderer had saved every escort ship. As emergency power returned to the royal vessels, their crews could hardly believe what had happened. "A human cargo ship just rescued the pride of the royal fleet," the head guard said, shaking his head in amazement. Dawn looked around at the worn but sturdy ship that had just saved all their lives. "Not just any cargo ship," she corrected him. "The Star Wanderer, and don't you forget it." In the cockpit, Jack patted his ship's console affectionately. The storm had left a few more scorch marks on the hull, a few more stories to tell. But that, as the princess would say, just added more character. The escort fleet was still making repairs after the ion storm when the pirates struck. They came from behind an asteroid field, their ships painted black to blend with space. They thought the Star Wanderer would be an easy target, especially with the royal ships still recovering. 6 pirate vessels approaching fast, Tom called from the radar station. "They're trying to surround us." The pirates probably expected to find fancy automatic weapons on a royal transport. Instead, the Star Wanderer had something better. A crew that knew every bolt and panel of their ship, and a princess who wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty. "Linda, give me everything you've got in the engines," Jack ordered through the speaking tube. "Dawn, remember those manual targeting controls we practiced?" The princess was already at the weapons station, her hands steady on the controls. "Ready, Captain," she said. The head guard stood behind her, impressed by how quickly she had learned the ship's defense systems. The first pirate ship fired a high-tech hacking beam, trying to take control of their computer systems. Jack couldn't help but laugh. "Good luck hacking manual controls," he said, spinning the steering wheel hard. The Star Wanderer moved like a dancing elephant, not pretty, but surprisingly agile. Her patched hull might have looked weak, but those patches were made of metal stronger than the original plating. Each repair had made her tougher. "They're trying to cut through the cargo bay door," one of the guards shouted. "Let them," Linda called back with a grin. She had prepared a special surprise. When the pirates cut through the door, they found the cargo hold had no artificial gravity. They floated in helplessly, while the guards in magnetic boots easily captured them. Two pirate ships moved closer, preparing to dock. That's when Dawn revealed another of the Star Wanderer's secrets, releasing emergency coolant. She announced, pulling a large red lever. Jets of freezing coolant sprayed out from those exposed pipes the guards had complained about earlier. The pirate ship's fancy sensors couldn't detect the simple chemical spray, and their engines froze up instantly. 3 down, 3 to go, Tom counted, still watching the radar. The remaining pirates realized this wasn't going to be an easy victory. They tried to retreat, but Jack had positioned the Star Wanderer perfectly during the fight. The pirate ships found themselves trapped between the recovering Royal Fleet and an approaching asteroid. "Should we let them go?" Dawn asked, her finger on the weapon's trigger. Jack shook his head. "Pirates don't learn lessons by getting away. Tom, show them our special modification." Tom pulled out what looked like an old tractor beam control, the kind used for moving cargo. But Linda had modified it years ago. Instead of pulling things in, it could push them away. Hard. The blast from the reverse tractor beam sent the pirate ships tumbling toward the Royal Fleet's waiting arms. By the time the last pirate was captured, even the most doubtful royal technician had to admit that sometimes the simplest solution was the best one. "I don't understand," one captured pirate leader said later. "Our scans showed no advanced weapons, no AI systems, nothing but basic equipment." "That's your problem," Dawn told him, still wearing her oil-stained overalls. "You were looking for advanced technology. You weren't looking for clever humans." The head guard nodded in agreement. "I used to think like you," he told the pirate. "I thought advanced meant better. But this ship taught me that it's not what technology you have. It's how you use it." "And who uses it," Linda added, patting the ship's wall. "The Star Wanderer might not look like much, but she's got the best crew in space." As they continued their journey, the Royal Fleet now treated the old cargo ship with new respect. The Star Wanderer's hull had a few more scorch marks, and the cargo bay door would need another patch, but that was fine. Each mark told a story, and now they had some new ones to tell. News traveled fast in space. By the time the Star Wanderer reached the first outer system, stories about the Ion Storm rescue and the pirate battle had spread everywhere. At every stop, alien ships came close to look at the famous human vessel that had outperformed the most advanced ships in the Royal Fleet. "Another request for a tour," Tom said, holding up a message tablet. "This time it's from the Blue Star Trading Company. They want to know how our coolant defense system works." The Star Wanderer was docked at Unity Station, the biggest spaceport in the outer systems. From the observation deck, Princess Dawn could see at least 20 ships from different alien worlds, all waiting to talk to Captain Jack and his crew. "That makes 15 shipping companies this week," Linda said, cleaning engine grease from her hands. "Plus 3 planetary defense forces, and even the Royal Guard wants to order some ships from Earth now." The head guard, who hadn't left the Star Wanderer since their adventures, nodded. "Simple systems save lives. We learned that in the Ion Storm, our fancy ships would have been space junk without Captain Jack's help." Dawn watched as a group of alien engineers studied the Star Wanderer's hull patches with scanning devices. "They still don't understand," she said. "They think it's just about the technology. But it's really about the people who use it." Just then, a message came through on the main screen. The Emperor's face appeared, looking both proud and slightly confused. "Dawn," he said, "I've been hearing interesting reports about your journey. It seems your choice of ship has caused quite a stir." "Father," Dawn smiled, "remember when you said the outer systems needed to see the Empire's might? Well, they've seen something better. They've seen how different cultures can work together and learn from each other." The Emperor looked at the crowd of aliens gathering around the Star Wanderer. "I've received formal requests from 12 major worlds, all asking about human shipbuilding. They want to know if Earth can help design their next generation of vessels." Jack stepped forward. Your Majesty, if I may, what they're really asking for is balance. Our ship isn't better than your advanced vessels. It's just different. Sometimes you need fancy computers, and sometimes you need a wrench and some common sense. The Emperor was quiet for a moment, thinking. Finally, he smiled. Captain, how would you feel about helping to design a new class of ships for the Royal Fleet? Something that combines the best of both our worlds. Before Jack could answer, alarms started blaring throughout Unity Station. A cargo ship's engines had failed, and it was falling out of orbit. The station's advanced tractor beams weren't strong enough to hold it. Linda, Jack called out, fire up our modified tractor beam. The Star Wanderer's crew jumped into action, while other ships watched helplessly, their AI systems calculating odds of success. Jack's ship moved quickly into position. Using their reverse tractor beam at full power, they pushed the falling ship back into a safe orbit. The Emperor had watched the whole thing. Impressive, he said. A simple solution to a complex problem. Perhaps that's what our empire needs more of. Dawn touched the worn wall of the ship that had become her second home. The Star Wanderer taught us all something important. Father, true strength isn't about having the most advanced technology. It's about understanding what you have and using it wisely. The head guard stepped forward. Your Majesty, I've served in the Royal Fleet for 20 years. I've seen ships with technology we thought was perfect. But after serving on this vessel, I understand that perfect isn't always practical. The Emperor nodded slowly. Then perhaps it's time for a change. Dawn, your tour has accomplished more than I ever expected. You've shown our people that there's strength in diversity, even in how we build our ships. As the Emperor's image faded from the screen, Dawn looked around at her human and alien friends. Together, they had proved that sometimes the best way forward was to take a step back and remember the simple things that worked. 1 month later, the Star Wanderer sat in the center of Earth's largest shipyard. Around her, teams of human and alien engineers worked together, studying every part of the ship that had changed how the Empire thought about space travel. Careful with those blueprints, Captain Jack called out to a group of royal technicians. They were examining the manual backup systems that had saved them during the ion storm. Those drawings are older than I am. Princess Dawn stood beside him, watching as Linda taught alien engineers about the ship's modified tractor beam. The aliens took notes on fancy tablets, while Linda drew diagrams in the dust on the floor. Look at them all working together, Dawn said happily. When I chose your ship, I never imagined it would lead to this. The shipyard was busy with activity. On one side, human welders worked with alien designers to build new ships that combined both cultures' best ideas. Some had advanced AI systems, but also manual controls. Others had perfect alien hulls, but simple human-style repair systems. The first prototype is almost ready, Tom said, running up with oil on his face. Wait until you see it, Captain. They walked to the other end of the shipyard where a new ship stood gleaming in the sunlight. It looked like nothing anyone had seen before, beautiful like an alien vessel but sturdy like a human one. The Emperor himself had come to Earth to see it. We're calling it the Bridge class, the Emperor announced, his floating throne hovering near the new ship, because it bridges the gap between our worlds. He turned to Jack, and we want you to captain the first one. Jack looked surprised. Me? But I'm just a cargo hauler. No, Dawn corrected him. You're the captain who showed us a better way. The Empire needs people who understand both ways of thinking. The head guard, who now led the project to train crews for the new ships, stepped forward. Every Bridge-class ship will have both human and alien crew members. We'll learn from each other, just like we did on the Star Wanderer. Linda came over, wiping her hands on a rag. And the best part? All the pipes are still exposed. She grinned at the alien engineers. Some good ideas don't need changing. But what about the Star Wanderer? Jack asked, looking at his old ship. She's still got plenty of flying left in her. Dawn smiled. She's going to be a training ship. Every new crew will serve on her first, learning why simple is sometimes better. And, she paused dramatically, I've convinced Father to let me stay on as her captain. The Emperor sighed but smiled. My daughter has learned more about leadership from this primitive vessel than from all her royal tutors. How could I say no? Tom looked worried. But Princess, what about your royal duties? What better duty than teaching our peoples to work together? Dawn replied. Besides, someone needs to keep telling the Star Wanderer's story. As if to prove her point, a group of young aliens and humans walked by, all wearing the same kind of practical coveralls Dawn now preferred to her royal clothes. They were the first class of cadets for the new fleet, eager to learn from both cultures. Jack watched them, then looked at his old ship. The Star Wanderer's hull still showed every repair, every patch, every story of their journey. But now, instead of looking worn out, she looked proud. She had changed an empire not by being the most advanced ship, but by being exactly what she was. A simple ship with a good crew who understood her. Well, he said finally, I suppose the bridge class does need a good captain. But on one condition. Name it, the Emperor said. Jack patted the Star Wanderer's hull. We keep the manual steering wheel. Sometimes you just can't beat the old ways. Dawn laughed and hugged her father. See, that's exactly why I chose this ship. It's not about being the best or the most advanced. It's about finding what works and trusting the people who understand it. As the sun set over the shipyard, humans and aliens worked side by side, building a future that was neither too simple nor too perfect, but something better. A future they would build together.